has a long history of college quarterbacks that have made it to, despite being a Division II/1 AA team. They sent Scott Bruner to the Giants. Remember Scott Bruner?
Yeah, yep.
He was a backup. Yeah.
He was a starter for a while. He took him to the playoffs. He took him to a playoff bit as a starter right before Phil Simms came in.
Oh, okay. The lost years.
Right, the last years. And then Jeff Comlo with Detroit. And then Rich Gannon with, of course, Michigan and with Minnesota and then Oakland. And now Flacco. Right. So yeah, they have a good long history for a small school, putting up some pretty good quarterbacks.
Actually, it's Delino DeShields is what I was thinking. It was from Delaware too.
Okay. And Delino DeShields Jr.
The other most famous person from the University.
I don't know about Junior, Mike. I think he's from somewhere else.
Is Tubby Raymond was the old quarterback from Delaware, but his son, I forget Tubby Raymond's son's name. The first name is Raymond. Is the first initial Philly Fanatic. So.
Yes. Okay. Yep. I remember him.
Was a punter at the University of Delaware.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
I always remember him like being. And the funny thing is, his most memorable thing was an acting thing, very similar to the Fanatics. Like it was a Division II, I want to say, playoff game.
Yeah.
And he let off a punt and someone just barely tapped him, and he was like the punter like just flying on the ground like totally dead, like looked like he had been shot, and flag goes down, and he immediately just jumps up like there was no problem at all. They call the penalty, the roughing the kicker penalty, and the Delaware goes on to win the game. So it was actually a big moment.
I before we get to the movie thing, I just want to say this because today it's France and Belgium in the World Cup semifinal, and then tomorrow it's England Croatia. I think everybody is rooting for an England versus France.
Nope,
final.
I'm rooting for Croatia just because.
Oh, screw that! No, I want England versus France. France
has a Giroud on it. The France has a Giroud. There's actually a Giroud who's one of their scorers on.
But I just want like the bloodletting rivalry between these two countries because they hate each other with a passion.
No,
they've never had any problems between those two countries.
Oh no, not at all.
So,
yeah, Napoleon was nothing.
So Delino DeShields is from Seaford, Delaware, Mike, but his son is from Easton, Maryland. So they obviously moved, which I figured that was the case.
There you go.
Now, what were you?
So, movie-wise,
I went to a movie last night. Go ahead, you start.
We don't really care about that, but this
wow.
Damn, Russ.
We'll get to that. Hold on.
Tell me what we care about, Russ. What do we care about?
Go black, Russ.
I need the sound effects again.
There's a new movie coming out in August, and it's called Christopher Robin.
Now, it's awesome. Looks awesome. Yep.
Now, but here's the thing. There is no way in the world Winnie the Pooh plays second fiddle to Ewan McGregor or anybody playing Christopher Robin. There's just no way. This is bad casting. Not that Ewan McGregor is not a great actor. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
But Winnie the Pooh is the star. Christopher Robin is not the star.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Why was the movie named Christopher Robin, Russ?
I'm going to throw this out.
Obviously,
I saw the preview for it last night when I went to see The Incredibles 2, not that you care.
Everybody saw it today, heck, so.
But I did see it last night. It was very good. And Christopher Robin was one of the previews that came before this thing, and it looks amazing. First of all, it looks incredible. Like it's the first ever computer animated Winnie the Pooh. So the characters look like they're supposed to, which is like stuffed animals that are moving around. And
but Christopher Robin isn't the star. Winnie the Pooh is the star.
God,
The idea.
You're already making my eyes pop out of my.
It's too bad. It's too bad. If you go find
the story appears.
Russ, jeez, my God, you can
find me the book.
Oh my God,
find me the book that's entitled Christopher Robin.
It's a movie.
There are only two
Russ.
books written, by the way, and they're for all the Winnie the Pooh that we've seen. There's only 2 books written by. It's been taken from Disney from there. Okay,
right.
But yeah, I mean, it looks like it is the story of Christopher Robin as a grown-up now, meeting up with his characters from his youth, and so it is the story. It makes sense. There are several great Winnie the Pooh quotes, which I actually have in my office. Winnie the Pooh quotes on the wall, and I have one like right over there, which is one of my favorites, and it's in the movie. It's in the movie preview, and the quote is, "They say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing every day."
Right. That's a great quote.
I love that line. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And the other is,
but here's the thing:
get to where I'm going from leaving where I've been.
I don't care if Anthony throws a fit, but here's the thing:
I'm
when
done.
you watch the trailer, it's clear that Winnie the Pooh is the star. But the only reason they called it Christopher Robin is because Christopher Robin is the human in this. That is the only reason, and I think they could have done it differently because
Even
even
call
when
it Winnie the
well-
Pooh Adventures of Christopher Robin or something.
Well,
like
they-
Robin is the straight man here.
If they would have followed the, like, you know, we have Han Solo and they had the movie Solo, the movie would have been called Pooh, and then we know where that would have gone.
Who?
Right.
The second coming.
Right.
It brought to you by KO Pectate.
Oh,
This is
Oh,
a
man,
bad
no.
job by Disney. Sorry.
Oh boy, we've lost everyone now, Mike. Thanks, everyone.
No problem.
Everyone just turned off. I don't know where to go from there. All right,
Hello, Hockey
You can
World.
only go up from Pooh.
let's start. I went to Movie Tavern last night, by the way. Movie Tavern. Have you ever been to Movie Tavern yet?
yes.
No.
in there.
It's fantastic. Yes, it is. It's amazing. It's incredible. They bring it's like going to a restaurant. They bring you food.
Well,
They,
even AMC does that. Everybody does that now.
they bring you food.
Oh,
AMC?
yeah.
They do. Okay, I know that. But
Yeah, you can pre-order it or they'll bring it to you. Oh, yeah.
they have waiters and waitresses at AMC now.
Yeah.
They do. I didn't know that.
Yeah. At least in the local one here, they'll bring you anything you
They
want.
opened a really big one right around the corner for me, so I should check that out. But so it's Movie Tavern in Flowertown, which is the hometown of.
Mike Richter, I just wrote about it.
There you go, Mike Richter. That's where I was in last night. So, yeah, so that was amazing. I mean, and they made their menu a lot better as well. So, but you always go early
That's the
because
thing. AMC doesn't have a great menu, right? It's not going to be,
Movie taverns.
Yeah, when I worked at AMC, Russ, the menu consisted of 3-day-old popcorn.
it's a little better now.
It's flattered in 5-day-old pop.
No. 3-day-old popcorn in a garbage bag, emptied into the popcorn. You popped one thing of fresh popcorn and mixed it in, and everybody thought it was fresh.
No, that they don't do that as much anymore because with the price,
But they did it when I worked there, and that
I
wasn't
know.
me.
But that was back in the old.
HockeyBuzzcast is sponsored by AMC theaters.
That was back in the old swindling 99-cent movie days. Now that they spend a lot, they're making it fresh again. They are most places.
Yeah, they are. And my wife has a beer mug, a beer stein that's like it's got to be this big for Movie Tavern that you can buy and bring with you every time you go. So it's impressive. I'm always impressed by her. She just brings this giant beer stein, and it's cheaper.
I'm impressed if she finishes it every time. I mean,
Oh no! She's a Cornell girl, Russ. She can drink all of you guys under the table. I guarantee.
no, she can't stop.
Oh man!
Listen,
Let's start
I
that
went
show.
out with-
please.
Go on a challenge. Believe me on this one. Trust me.
I don't believe it.
Who have passed out with her and have tried. I mean, they've tried.
But you're more of a lightweight. I don't.
No, I'm not. I'm not even gonna try. But I mean, I have lots of friends who drink plenty. Ask Captain EO about it. Go ahead, you guys.
Is your wife's favorite character in the movie Marion Ravenwood from Raiders of the Lost Ark? You've heard about people drinking people under the table.
I know. I love that scene. We just saw the movie the other day.
But even Captain EO is a bit of a lightweight. I mean, let's
No,
be.
he's not. He's not. And he
Okay.
he can be taken. Kevin Allen been taken by other. My wife has drank them all under the table at one point or another. I promise you.
Hello, Hockey World.
I couldn't be prouder of her for that. The mother of a child. And yet she's a PhD. So I mean, what do you know? I mean, what do you think? It's just crazy. Anyway, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, July 10th, 2018.
I'm I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Anthony Mingioni.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you all summer long, Monday through Friday. We continue when everybody else just goes off to their cottages. Why? Because we don't have cottages to go to. But besides that, we also believe that hockey is not over, and it is not over yet. And there's plenty to talk about right now. It's amazing to me that that Sirius XM is just in this mode that they're in right now. Because I mean, I listen to that. That's on here all the time because they do a great job, and that they're in this crazy mode of like replaying interviews from November and stuff like that. I mean, there's so much happening right now, and today is the perfect example because we had a big signings day, and we will get to that before we get into my debate topic, which I know Mike wants to talk to me about. Which is that my blog today that I believe Austin Matthews should be and absolutely should be paid more than Connor McDavid, but we'll talk about that in a second. But first off, Nikita Kucherov signs today, $9.5 million per year, 8 years. Does this end the Carlson chase? That's the question. What do we think?
Well, my first reaction was yes, but then I see people who I respect, like Chris Johnston from Sportsnet, who said he doesn't think. He thinks that that Kucherov being signed provides some sort of cost certainty for the Lightning going forward. But I look at their cap right now.
$1 million of cost certainty.
Well, no, but I'm saying I look at their cap right now, and right now they for next year they have $69 million in cap space allocated to, I think it was 29 players, and that's 21 players under the 50 limit. So that's a lot of entry level deals, and they do have a lot of young players, and maybe that's the plan. And also the plan might be, if they do still trade for Karlsson, that money would be going out in terms of the deal, and money would be, guys like Callahan or somebody else would be shipped off to other places. But I don't know. I mean, Kucherov is in that. I mean, he's being paid more than Stamkos now. It's a higher percentage of cap. It's a higher money figure, and unless it's a 1-year deal, unless they're trading for Karlsson to rent him, I don't see how they make it work. Now, I'm not a capologist, but I don't see how they make it work.
But they can make it work. I mean, look,
they could.
If you move out Callahan, you're making it work for at least 2 years. They might have to move somebody else. You get to go over the cap in the summer, so they're not really worried about it this minute. They'll figure it out. But the part about the Callahan clearinghouse part of this, I know there's a segment of Ranger fans that want him back, not just because they're cheap and want to use the same jerseys over again, but just because of what he meant to the team. Like, I get that. Yeah. But these days you can't stand on ceremony like that. Just watch Jose Reyes with the Mets. Like, when a guy's done or close to done, a guy with a big cap hit will become the enemy of the fans after a while. And you don't want that to happen to that guy who was great for the Rangers. Like, you don't. And so if I'm a Ranger fan, I don't want him back. I don't want him messing up the cap. I don't want to see that legacy that he had tarnished. Even though he never won a championship, he's certainly a great captain for them. The Devils make sense because they've really done nothing. I mean, if you think about it, they've done the most minor of moves, AHL kind of moves. So if they're going to swallow a cap hit like Callahan and play him, then they're probably going to get either a first-round pick or somebody pretty good, some prospect that they feel like they can't use. That's the only way Tampa does it, unless, like Mike said, the rental market is what this turns into. And we could say with all conviction that, hey, Ottawa's got to get assets for him. They've got to make a big deal. But again, there's a limited amount of owners now that could take him on with, a signed deal, having him want to extend there and everything else. It's complicated. I think there's probably only 2 teams, maybe 3, that could even take him now where he might want to go other than a rental. And that's where, if teams like the Rangers just sort of sit tight, it is possible that he does go on a rental basis and then he could sign anywhere next year. I know people are saying that's not going to happen, but I say never say never. I don't know. I can't say for sure.
The Tampa situation for me in many ways it resembles what the Blackhawks are sort of dealing with at the moment, where they're putting a lot of money into the top end guys, and then now the big difference for me is Tampa's system is flush with talent. That's the one area where I think that they can actually, with low cost talent, where they can do this run, I think, for several years and with these high end salaries and still be able to make things work. But again, they're going to have to figure out, as Russ stated, the Devils do seem like a likely place. I know there's been some conversation, have been some theories bounced around about whether or not Philly. I know Bill Meltzer had mentioned in a tweet that if Philadelphia were to get involved, they would want to have, let's say, like a Taylor Radish involved if they were to help out Tampa. But this was obviously before the Kucherov signing, so this is another potential suggestion there. But Tampa just has that sort of feeling of like Chicago after they had already won the cup, except they haven't won it yet. So they
haven't won the cup yet. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's a really, really. I mean, they haven't won it yet, and that's what's kind of bizarre. The way they're acting right now is a little bit strange. And then Yzerman, just at 1:13 p.m., comes out with this quote. I know you guys probably haven't seen it yet, but I was just trying to pull it up. And I'll pull it up. It's Joe Smith, who writes for The Athletic, I think.
Yes.
When I call it.
Yeah. he puts this quote out, and essentially, and I'm trying to bring exactly what it up. So Yzerman, oh, here we go. Good, I got it right here. Here we go. Cool. This is worth this incredibly exciting wait. One of the fun things about today is that if you follow Carlson on Instagram, he put out a picture of him golfing today with he was with Cronwell, Zetterberg, and Backstrom.
Yeah, I got the quote here.
Go ahead.
Yzerman on being able to handle another significant long-term contract via trade. I don't think it's impossible, but if you look at our commitments, if we bring on another significant contract, we'd have to make money work, so to speak. So, I mean,
but not the quote I'm referring to. The quote I'm referring to is,
okay.
Despite what you might all read or report, so Yzerman says no trade is close or imminent. Despite what you might all read or report, very inaccurate. That's Yzerman about.
Okay.
I think he's trying to squash the market now too, because he signed Kucherov, so now he's trying to kill like the potential of that deal for Ottawa, so it comes back to him on the rental basis. Like, I think that's his angle here.
I mean, I really think that's where it's going, because when this broke, I immediately called you, and Russ, and wanted to talk about this because I knew we were going to talk about it during the show. And if you look at the situation now, I mean, yes, Tampa, I think, could still make a deal with the prospects that they have, with the cap situation that they have. If they move out of Callahan, who's got 2 years left at a little under $6 million, they could shoehorn Carlson in on a 1 year with the year remaining on his deal. But I think that equals the playing field for a number of other teams out there, like Dallas, like Vegas, like other teams who might be interested in him as a 1 year guy. Now, we know that Carlson is basically, I mean, from all the reporting that's been out there, that the only place that Carlson apparently was interested in signing a long-term deal for was Tampa. So if that's now out of the question, then it opens it up for now. And we know that they're not going to get as much on a deal on a rental deal, 1 year rental deal, but they'll get something, and it's better than nothing. And this is the same position that the Islanders were in last year with Tavares before July 1st, and the Leafs were in last year with James Van Riemsdyk. At a certain point, you have to say, get something, because something is better than nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think they have to at some point get something for this guy, and I don't see any way they can play him this year. Like we talked about before. Like I don't. I mean, they could bring him back in. He could play, but I don't see. Yeah, it would be just so detrimental to the whole environment of the team and the fans. I mean, just in general, you've got to move on. They really need. I mean, like I said before, and the thing I will say about the Flyers in this whole scenario and the longer this goes, the more the more the Flyers become an option. Is that if Gostisbehere really is involved in this, that is actually the best player I have heard mentioned in a trade. But
that's just for the 1 year option. If Carlson goes to Philly, he's probably going to go UFA just to test the market anyhow.
But not if Philadelphia is moving. Not if Philadelphia is going to move Gostisbehere in the deal. They won't go.
We don't know what he thinks of the city. Like, we have no idea.
Well, that's the whole point, Anthony. The whole point is they're not going to trade Gostisbehere unless they can get Carlson on a long-term deal, and Carlson's not going to agree to a long-term deal unless it's a place he wants to go.
Right.
Why?
Yeah. But that Philadelphia is they have done this before with players who weren't so thrilled about coming here. They bring them in and they convince them to come here. I mean, and that has happened before. And
no, it's not impossible. But until we hear that he even has an inkling that he likes the city, it's a long shot.
Well, it's still a long shot, yeah. But at this point, it is the best single player that I've heard mentioned in this thing. And
I still think Heiskanen might be better, to be honest.
I mean, but do you really think that Philadelphia would? Do you really think that Philadelphia would offer Gostisbehere with no promise that Carlson signs a long-term deal? I don't think so.
No, there's no way. No, but no, there would have to be a promise. And I think that they in Ottawa would probably want some assurances from Gostisbehere as well, even though because he's got 2 years left, right? So he's
got a longer term on that. His contract.
I think it's three.
Okay, so maybe 3 is good enough. But I think you definitely see it for a really good draft pick heading to Ottawa.
This automatically, I mean, it takes let's use Dallas as an example. If we're talking long-term extension, then maybe Heiskanen is realistic in terms of.
Casper has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more years on his deal.
Wow,
He
okay.
got to pay in 2023, 2024.
Okay, as I was saying with Dallas, if Carlson was amenable to a long-term deal, then you're talking Heiskanen would be the price. If you're talking about him as a 1-year rental, then I think it probably goes down to, a Honka and another prospect and maybe a conditional first if he re-signs. But that's something at least. That's not him walking away and saying bye-bye to Eugene Melnyk next July.
Yeah, and I've also heard Detroit's name mentioned recently as well, not just because he was playing golf with a bunch of those players today, but because of obviously the connection that Detroit has with Sweden, and the history they have with Swedish players, and definitely there's no question that I think that when you look down the road, I mean, obviously his one of his better friends, Alfredsson, went to Detroit briefly for a while, as well. So, and I've heard Val Fippola say that he's very connected with a lot of players in Detroit as far as this goes. So yeah, I mean Detroit's within the division. We talked about that. It's within the division for Ottawa, but Detroit does have some good young talent they could possibly throw into a trade as well, right?
If Carlson wants to be there long term, which again,
yeah,
I'm going to guess Detroit's not a place he wants to be long term.
Yeah, and the thing is that Detroit's in the midst of a rebuild. I mean, they have some holdovers from the glory years like Zetterberg and Kronwall, who I think is on his last legs. And the thing is, do you want to trade guys like Mantha or Larkin in a deal to get Carlson? When you have no guarantee if he's going to re-sign, and even if he is going to re-sign, is that what you want to do? Go to get a player who's in his late 20s, who's in the middle of his prime, but there's some question marks about the injury situation, and I mean that would be a move that Detroit would make to fill that new building because that team is in the midst of a rebuild. I don't think that's if Kenny Holland is that desperate to get that team relevant again. I mean, they drafted Zadina, they drafted Veleno, they've got some good young players. Let it grow naturally and don't jumpstart it with a move that could smack of desperation.
I'm going to throw the other thing out there that has to be talked about. And could Kucherov be traded? And could he be part of this now that he's signed? Could he be traded?
From what I understood from some of the tweets from like Joe Smith and a few other Tampa Bay people, there's a no move clause, and when there's a no move clause, it kicks in automatically.
Right.
Even though he's got a year left on the current deal, the no move clause kicks in. So I think
don't we usually hear that like the no move clauses are starting like July 1st with people?
That changed after Carter and Richards.
Right.
But didn't we just have this happen with Tyler Johnson?
No, they would have to ask Tyler Johnson to waive his no trade.
I thought for some reason we made it July 1st.
Or
maybe it was a contract where it was negotiated that it would start.
It was already in place. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, well there you go. So let's move on because obviously I think what we have seen today by the Kucherov signing is the equivalent of Groundhog Day and the groundhog coming out and saying there's going to be like 6 more weeks of winter. Like I feel like we've
well, here's the only thing. Like I'm doing detective work, right? And Carlson's got a 10-team no trade list, right?
Yeah, he does.
Edmonton is out and the Islanders are out. So there's 8 other teams that he at least at one point last year was willing to go to. I gotta, we gotta try and whittle down that list a bit more. But it's 8. There's still 8 other teams. Now I don't think there's 8
block a trade too.
8 other teams he wasn't willing to go to. So, like basically, that the Islanders and Edmonton were on the no trade list.
Right.
So,
but they're the only 2 that we know that were.
Yeah, I would bet a team like Buffalo is probably on the no trade list or Winnipeg.
All right, so let's say it's Buffalo. So now we're down to 7. You know what I mean? Like there's probably, I'm telling you, they're probably down to like 4 teams.
Well, I mean, and the issue is that Carlson, if Tampa's not going to do it, he has to agree to sign an extension somewhere. He's got to, at some point he's going to have to, or else he's going to stay in and out. I mean, he's going to have to.
Why? No.
Why?
Right. I mean, if he wants to really screw over Melnyk and the Sens, he says, I'll play out my contract and leave.
Right.
In July.
He's the one who has the hammer here.
But I don't get the impression at all that he wants to do that.
Right, and I agree.
I think that, and then not just because he's a good guy, but just because he does. I think he just wants to start his career.
Well, that would make him. I mean, I think that the demonization of Tavares with the Islanders has been shameful the last week or so. And there would probably be a similar demonization when it came to Carlson if he did that. Don't allow the team to trade him and then just walk away and say nah, 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 nah. That okay. I mean, you can do that, but I don't think
that's a demonization. But when the team does that kind of crap all the time, the other direction, and no one ever blames the team for it.
Sure, I agree.
Like to sit there and say that Tavares had every right to do everything he did. And Carlson has every right.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that the reaction of the Islander fans right now. Why didn't you let us trade you last year if you knew you were going to leave? That's the thing.
Yeah, no, that's really true.
You had to take Tavares at his word in terms of the fact that he really was torn.
Right. Yeah,
until the end, which obviously nobody wants to believe.
Okay, but here's the thing we know for sure with Carlson, he gave them a no trade list before the trade deadline last year.
Yes.
They didn't do anything with that. So if something doesn't happen, it's on the organization.
We got enough whispers about Vegas and everything else right around the deadline, and it sounded like it got
close. It got close with
Vegas. At least with Vegas, and then things just didn't happen, and now this is where we stand now.
Right, but that talk was before the Tatar deal, and we were because then
once the Tatar deal happened, that was it.
But the Tatar deal wasn't like oh, we got Tatar, we're going to leave Carlson. That Tatar deal was when the Carlson deal fell apart. That's what happened. Right. It was the other way around. So it was like they couldn't get the Carlson deal done. So like, wait a second, we've got Thomas Tatar. Stop the presses. It wasn't like that. It was like, let's get on to the main event here. And that is the Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid debate. Austin Matthews being, they could renegotiate with him right now. It sounds like they're not going to. They're going to let him go.
It's not that I am sure that the Maple Leafs.
No, I know. It sounds like a decision by Matthews and Marner, right, to both play this year without renegotiating right now,
right,
without being extended. That's an interesting decision on both parts, I think, because it does always leave you open for injuries and all kinds of stuff. But they are going to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I listen to a lot of Canadian. I have a Canadian television, satellite thing that I can watch. I have a Slingbox up in Canada. I watch a lot of different people talking about Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews all the time, and I hear this comparisons, and I just kind of started getting to me that there is this feeling out there that Connor McDavid is so much more entitled to be the top paid player in the world than Austin Matthews is. That Connor McDavid is by far the better player. By far, he is the superstar, the Canadian superstar, and that's what he is. And there's no way at all that Austin Matthews could even be compared to that. He's going to make there's no way he can make as much money as him. And I just there's a couple ways to look at this, and then we'll let everybody talk. But there is the way of like, okay, how good are they on the ice? And you can say that Connor McDavid he's by far the best player probably in the history of the NHL at handling the puck and making plays at high speeds. There's no two ways about it. Connor McDavid is ridiculous at that. He's great at that. That's what he does incredibly well. He has not, however, made his teammates necessarily better, in the time. I mean, you can argue maybe he made Patrick Maroon a little better, but they weren't going to bring him back anyway now, apparently. So, and he also has only, and Edmonton has not exactly thrived under him. I mean, they had a good season last year. They went to the playoffs. They looked pretty good, but they haven't thrived under him too much. Where Austin Matthews, on the other hand, doesn't do that what Connor McDavid does for sure. But Austin Matthews is one of the best positional players I've ever seen in the NHL. I think Austin Matthews has one of the best shots I've seen in years. I think his shot is every bit as good as Connor McDavid's shot. And I think he does this one thing that I often talk about that people don't take enough credit on is Austin Matthews receives passes better than any player I've ever seen in the NHL. You throw a puck towards him, he will have that puck. And that's an enormous skill. That's the skill part. The other part is just to plan out how much money does this player make for their franchise. And so because you're paying him, partially on the money that they're making for you, right? At least, if not all, fully, right? So Austin Matthews jerseys, we talked about #1 in sales, right?
Well, okay.
And just in general, Toronto, the area of Toronto, way more sales potential than the area of Edmonton, right? So that's not even so I believe for those two reasons that Austin Matthews should be considered and as valuable, if not even more valuable than Connor McDavid. So that's my argument. And Mike, I know we can start with this because you, even though you're a Toronto person, do not agree with this.
Well, okay, is he? First of all, they're two completely different types of players.
They are. But there's that's what a value on them. Every player is different. So
right. I agree. But that being said, I think one of the factors that is going to be used by the Maple Leafs when they negotiate with Auston Matthews. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're gonna sign him, or their want is to sign him to an 8-year max deal. He'll be up there in the top 2 or 3 in the NHL. But you have to remember, McDavid got $12.5 million based on 2 factors. One was the fact that they wanted him locked into place for that new building in Edmonton, and they overpaid. So if they did that, that does not mean that everybody else is going to follow suit. I mean, we see the problems with that overpayment because then they had to overpay Draisaitl. He's making 8.5, so that's $21 million for 2 players, and that's going to be a similar problem with the Leafs when it comes to Marner, because Marner may believe after putting up whatever type of year he puts up in Toronto that he deserves as much as Matthews, and he's not going to get as much as Matthews because Matthews is a center.
Right. There's no way. I mean, that argument cannot be. Marner's
I'm telling you what the talk is right now, Ak, and if Marner is going to be put with John Tavares,
he'll die on that stand if he tries. There's just no way.
Well, I'm just telling you that is a possibility.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say, here's what I'll say. Connor McDavid's offensively superior to Auston Matthews. He is. Yes. Matthews has not even gotten to 41 goals yet. He had 40. McDavid's had 41. McDavid's had back-to-back 100-point seasons. He had 108 last year.
All right, but points per minute.
No,
playing time totally different.
Okay, listen. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody pushed harder for Auston Matthews than me, but he is not Connor McDavid.
Right.
He's not as fast. He's not as skilled on the ice. He's close. He's always going to be close.
Right.
But the thing is, when you're talking about salary, and McDavid got paid a couple of years ago. So is it possible that when Auston Matthews signs that his first year AAV is more than Connor McDavid? Sure, that is possible. And then it decreases from there. Yes. I do think that that's a very possible thing because that happens all the time in every sport. But that doesn't make Matthews better. It doesn't make him worth more. It doesn't matter that his jersey sales are more. At the end of the day, he's going to get right in that ballpark. And I think Marner is going to be the big loser here because his agent should have pushed for a contract this year, knowing you can't match what Auston Matthews is going to get. But the problem is, once they spend money on Auston Matthews, what are they going to have left for Mitch Marner? That's why he should have signed it this year.
Anthony, go ahead. Then I have something. Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, what the heck happened?
You're still there. Go ahead.
My screen suddenly went blank on me there for a second.
Right. We got you.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Again, many of the points that I would have probably brought up here, Russ just hit on in most cases here in terms of how I sort of view the 2 players. They're both, entertaining players as you're going to find in recent years in the NHL. We're going to have endless debates between the 2 of them for many years to come, which is good. Again, every era needs to have that healthy debate. Lemieux, Gretzky, and you can continue on from there. In my mind, though, again, just watching obviously the 2 players, to me, McDavid, again, is the more complete of the 2. And to me, at the end of the day, I know, and X certainly brings up some good points here, I think, with regards to market and everything else. But I think in the grand scheme of things, for me, McDavid is still ahead of Matthews.
And I hear what you guys are all saying, and obviously, like I said before, and I'll let you go. My counterpoint to the 3 of you is that we all make this huge deal about how fast he is and about how skilled he is. And those are usually important things. And I'm not saying that he isn't dynamic and that he isn't an incredible player. And none of this is against him. I just don't think he's as valuable as Auston Matthews is to Toronto. Well, and I think when you look at the money, because Auston Matthews will, to me, he's Ovechkin and Auston Matthews is Crosby. And that people will go crazy about that, but I really think that's what it feels like.
I think McDavid,
more dynamic player, more exciting player.
I think McDavid has I think McDavid has been victimized by an incompetent organization that has made bad signings and bad deals. And if you look at Matthews came in, there was no mistake. They kept Bozak, they kept Kadri, they kept JVR. There was a support structure there. They brought in the young players all at the same time. They had a Stanley Cup winning coach in Mike Babcock. There was a lot more support for Austin Matthews and a lot less dependency. I mean, it's the Connor McDavid show. That's all it is.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that, because Kadri's numbers have gone up drastically since Austin Matthews got there. And I know they don't play together, but the fact is that Austin Matthews being there makes Kadri a better player.
And Austin,
from a matchup standpoint, I can certainly see that in terms of him making, in that respect, I don't use the phrase osmosis, but he does help to make players better, even in the
it just gives him better matchups. He's not, you're in a matchup against Austin Matthews.
And what's it going to be like when Tavares gets the number one checker on the other team, and Matthews faces second line matchups? I mean,
here's the thing too, Mike. Yeah. With shortened seasons, neither of these two players are better than Sidney Crosby yet.
Right,
and that's the other person we're not even mentioning here.
Yeah, no, I'm not debating that. And I think that, but Crosby's contract, he's not making as much money. I'm just saying.
But he could
make the best player in the league right now. Crosby still is the best player in the league because he has done what he's done. Right, he's won, and he's put up points, and he's done all that stuff, and he's won at every level he could possibly win at. Crosby, but McDavid is starting to fall into the Ovechkin trap a little bit. Ovechkin from years in his career.
No, but this is the thing, and this happens. This has happened all the time, especially with players in Toronto. Is that there is this hype about how much they're going to get paid and how oh my God, William Nylander is going to get $8 million a year. Well, I just did a column for Hockey Buzz, and if you look at it and you look at the comparatives of like three players, Johnny Gaudreau, Nick Ehlers, and David Pasternak, and you take the percentage of cap that they were paid when their contracts were signed and the years and what they did the year before, Nylander's probably going to get, if he signs a long-term deal, is going to get paid probably 6 to 6.25, maybe 6.3 a year. The thing is, the example of Tavares coming in, he could have taken $13 million from San Jose, and he took 11 to go to Toronto. If Austin Matthews has the ability in Toronto to make millions of dollars outside of just his contract, it's as much an advantage for Toronto as no taxes in Florida and Texas. He will not get 12.5. He'll probably get 11 or 11.5, something in that range. He will not be the highest paid player in the league, even if he scores 50 goals. But if he does, I mean, the endorsement opportunities are untapped or unlimited, and that's what I think will keep his salary below being the top player in the league.
If Connor McDavid had one player on his team that's close to his talent, he would have 125 point seasons.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't think Draisaitl or
no, they're not even close.
Draisaitl's a $6.5 million player being paid $8.5, and why? Because McDavid signed for 12.5, and they were caught between a rock and a hard place.
Who's better, Nylander or Draisaitl?
Draisaitl.
Draisaitl's better,
right?
But not by a lot.
Who's this? And Tavares is coming in this year, right? So
yes,
and obviously that changes a lot of things. But before this year is all we can go off of what these two players have done.
Right.
So, who is this? You throw all the players in the mix. You're going to say McDavid is number one. Say Austin Matthews is number two. The two Edmonton Toronto players. You're going to put Draisaitl as 3.
It's
close. Better than Marner? Is he better than Nylander?
It's close between him and Marner, but they're different players. See, the thing is, are we playing Draisaitl at center, or are you playing Draisaitl at the wing?
Right.
Yeah, we're playing him where he's playing in Edmonton,
which is on the wing with McDavid.
Right.
So I would say probably Draisaitl is slightly ahead of Marner.
Slightly more valuable than Marner.
But after Marner plays a year with Tavares and potentially scores 90 points.
Right, and better and more valuable are relative terms as well, right? So and I think that part of this is that I'm not trying to say I'm not trying to say that Matthews is altogether better than McDavid, because I think it's a toss up. But I don't. What really gets me though again is this is not even looked upon as a close fight. Like when people talk about
it's not a close fight right now.
Yeah,
I don't understand. I don't get how this is not a close fight.
Well, beside the 40-point difference in points, there's a lot of other reasons.
Yeah, I mean, there are question marks. I mean, first of all, and I don't think this is going to be a chronic problem, but Matthews got hurt 3 times last year and only played 60 games, so that's a concern.
Well, McDavid got hurt.
Connor McDavid is on an island by himself, and he still scored 100 points. Yeah. That's the whole. He's uncheckable, even when you know he's coming. He's the best player in the league. That's not a slam toward Austin Matthews, because I think Austin Matthews is an amazing talent, but Connor McDavid is significantly better.
I don't see the significant part of it. I really don't. I wish.
But that's because Connor McDavid is surrounded by Patrick Maroon and Chris Russell and Cam Talbot. He's surrounded by, I'd say, medium to mediocre talent.
But he also
That's why
those players aren't necessarily being elevated by him either, right? I mean, am I missing that? I mean,
Oscar Klefbom on the power
Edmonton wasn't even close to making the playoffs last year.
Like, here's the thing. Okay, let's take this into account. Right now, Austin Matthews gets to play on a much better power play than Connor McDavid does.
And it's the second power play.
Huh?
And it's the second power play.
Right. And it's a better power play because, like, who's even the point? Like, you look at the Edmonton power play, they don't even have a number one defenseman, like, who you would say, okay, this is great. He could, you could put McDavid on the half wall. You got this guy at the point. You got this guy.
I'm assuming Sekera is their point man on the power play. And
that's not enough.
No. And don't be surprised. Don't be surprised, Dak. And I'm waiting for this. We won't know until the regular season starts. Do not be surprised if John Tavares replaces Van Riemsdyk or Bozak on the number one power play, and they keep Matthews on the number two power play, because, I mean, it balances things out, but I'm sure the contract is a factor. They will never say that. But do they really want Austin Matthews to score 50 goals going into the last year of his ELC? I don't know. I don't know about that.
Cannot be a factor. That cannot be a factor in playing time.
They will say no,
Babcock, I do not buy for a second.
Trouble there, Mike. If that ends up
being a tough call, that is.
I don't buy for a second that Babcock would allow that to happen. Like, Babcock does not care what what Austin Matthews
didn't care.
Yeah,
he doesn't care what Austin Matthews makes. He doesn't, and he's
he doesn't care what Austin Matthews makes. But if
he's just going to try to win now. You can argue for sure that I mean, who's the one? What's interesting about this is I was listening to some guys on Sportsnet talking about this, and then they sat there and they said Tavares is coming in, and the guy says, well, I think Austin Matthews is better than Tavares right now. And I said, I don't know that he's better than Tavares right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure he is. I think they might be on the same level. They're pretty close.
I mean, if you could have one or the other moving forward, you would take Austin Matthews.
Only because of his age.
Right. Because of his age, right? Because of the potential of what's there. And that he could, but it's not a slam dunk, and Tavares is not old by any stretch of the imagination. So
I think Tavares is going to get 40 goals and 100 points this year.
No, he very well could. And and he might be the first line center, but at the end of the day, everyone in Canada seems to be acting like Austin Matthews is
No. I'm pretty sure it'll be Tavares over Matthews.
It starts to make you wonder, and it's like,
you actually think they're going to make John Tavares the second line center act?
I think they might. I think he might be the second best.
Honestly, there is not going to be a designation of 1 and 1A or 1A and 1B. I'll bet you any.
And if there always is, even though they say that, right?
It'll be referred to as the Tavares line. It'll be referred to as the Matthews line.
Right.
Well, okay. Babcock indicated last week that the lines that he, and it's funny that he mentioned this, 3 months before training camp, that his plan is to have Marleau playing with Matthews and Nylander, and then having Zach Hyman play with Tavares and Marner. That's 2 number 1 lines. That's not a number 1 and a number 2.
Right, but which line's going to
You'll refer
start?
to them as those 2 lines. You'll refer to them as a Tavares line and the Matthews line.
Right.
In public relations wise, that's the way you have to handle
Yes,
it.
but we're going to look at it. Which line is going to start games more often? It's going to be the Tavares line. It will be.
And Tavares is also going to be the first
But
power.
again, it could be matchup based. It could very well be matchup based, and you may not get that. Even that may be the exact way where Babcock is going to want to change up his matchups game by game and have the luxury of doing so depending on how certain lines play against other teams' top lines.
Against the Boston Bruins, say for example, Tavares will probably match up if the Leafs have the last change at home. Tavares will probably match up against Patrice Bergeron because Tavares is more experienced and But then you have Austin Matthews line up against
defensively, but defensively that may be a bit of a concern too. John's a great offensive player. I think defensively he's okay.
Oh, right, but then you have Austin Matthews matching up against David Krejci.
Right. Okay. I mean, certainly from that standpoint, absolutely.
I think the big matchup you guys aren't talking about is the Tavares line against the young Kovar line. Like that's going to be the big matchup.
Dun, 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 dun.
But Matthews is, I think, better defensively than Tavares.
Thank you, folks. See you next week.
With Ross Johnston and Matt Martin on the wings.
I think Matthews, by the way, and I'll throw this out there, is Matthews is better defensively than McDavid. No 2 ways about it. I think McDavid doesn't play any defense.
I will use the argument that they
give him the edge.
I will use the argument that they used many a time when it came to Gretzky, and I never bought it, but I sort of do now. McDavid's offense is his defense.
Right.
That's what it is.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure true.
You mean McDavid's defense is his offense?
Right.
That's right. His defense is his offense.
You're going to get the puck from him.
Right.
Right, which means, but if you spend time in the other team's zone, they can't.
But do I think Austin Matthews plays better defense? I do, but I do think the argument that Mike makes pretty much evens it out. I might give Matthews a slight edge. I might.
I mean, Matthews is great at stripping the puck off of another player's stick. He's strong. He's fast.
More physical than McDavid.
I'm not sure about face-off percentage. I know that Matthews was like a little less than 50%, or like at 50 or 51, and I don't know what McDavid is, but I remember them saying McDavid has been improved on his face-offs. But those are things that come with time. So both of them will end up being good.
Remember, Connor McDavid's only 21 years old too.
I know they're both incredibly young, and and really to sit there and we've had this debate before. Who is going to have the better career is so wide open. Like it's completely, to me, it's totally wide open between the two of them. Like
Matthews is playing catch up right now. I'm telling you.
I don't think so. I think right as of this point, career wise, they're dead even because they both played in 2 playoff rounds. Matthews has made the playoffs both years he's been in the league. McDavid has made it 1 of 3. Right. I mean, I think they're pretty much. If you talk about what the effect they've had on their team, they're pretty much dead even. I mean, I mean, I'll take every year. You can sit there and say every year Matthews has been in Maple Leaf, they've made the playoffs, which is impressive. Only once.
He's got a hell of a lot more around him than Connor McDavid does, though.
Yeah,
but he shouldn't. And the fact of the matter is,
the reality is, he does.
But I mean, the thing is, we're talking about Draisaitl. You're talking about Nugent Hopkins. You're talking about there's players on that team.
Name their defenseman.
I mean, Darnell Nurse is a really good defenseman.
He's nowhere near Morgan Riley.
No, he's not Morgan Riley, but he's as good as anybody else Toronto has.
Klefbom's obviously miscast in the role that he has in Edmonton.
Right, he's miscast. He's a good, and
Chris Russell.
Yep.
Yeah, but I can sit there and say,
okay, I'm going to tell you something, Eck, that I wrote about last year, and I saw it happening a lot of times when Connor McDavid's either on the power play and at times 5-on-5, when he passes the puck, he sometimes doesn't get it back because his team loses it. And there's a lot of that going on in Edmonton right now.
I
mean, that's also happened. I mean, Matthews hasn't had the most killer of line mates either in his career at Toronto. I mean, he's had Nylander for sure, but he's also played with was it Brown, right?
Zach Hyman and Zach Hyman. Zach
good
Hyman is a
player,
very effective winger. He's not a big scorer, but he's a very effective winger.
he's Patrick Maroon. Like Zach Hyman to me.
No, I think he's better.
He's better than that. He's sort of like Ken Hodge when Phil Esposito used to get set up by Ken Hodge. That's what he's like.
He's sort of what Kunitz was early in his time in Pittsburgh.
Okay, I'll give you Kunitz.
Chemistry-wise, that's the way you got to look at it. With Hyman, he's a guy who's going to dig the puck. You need to have that guy on the line as well to get his nose.
You definitely do, and I'll give you Kunitz. And just like Kunitz was made better by Crosby, Hyman has been made better by Matthews, and there's no question about that. Like I think that Hyman last year played, if I'm mistaken, I mean played a lot worse when Matthews wasn't with him. And then
there was, I think, maybe one game where he didn't play with them. He played with them all year. They kept that line together all year. Hyman, Matthews, Nylander.
When Matthews was hurt, I'm saying, when Matthews was hurt, Hyman's numbers went down, right? I mean, Matthews.
You're talking about 40 points for Zach Hyman. It's not like Zach Hyman had 65 points and you say, wow, Matthews really made Hyman that much better. He still only had 40 points, Zach. I mean, at the end of the day.
I mean, Zach Hyman was a UFA. What is he getting on the open market?
$3 million a year.
Yeah.
2.5 to $3 million a year, probably somewhere in there.
15 goals, 40 points. Like that's what you get for that.
But anywhere else he goes, I mean, he's one of these players that is, like Kunitz is better with one particular player. And,
well, you're
telling me now that they're moving.
You do need complementary players.
They're moving Tavares. They're moving him with Tavares, right? Is that what you think is going to happen?
Right. So he's going to dig out the puck for Tavares, which is,
and he probably will get a few more points with Tavares because Tavares is actually a little bit better of a passer at this point in his career than Austin Matthews is.
I think he's a better finisher. I wouldn't say he's a better passer.
Oh no, I think you should look again about the passing. I do.
I mean, he's a great passer, but I think Matthews is a really good playmaker. Like just from what I know.
Again, see John Tavares, you'll see a different John Tavares this year, and then you could judge him based on what you see him with some better talent.
He played with Barzal. That's pretty good. I mean, that's like and
he did play with Barzal every minute. He did.
And Lee. I mean, he put some numbers up. I mean, he's a great player. He's made those players better too. There's no question about that.
Watch how much Barzal's numbers drop without Tavares. They're going to drop.
So we're going to continue to say that this is ridiculous. That there's no way in the world that you can even compare Austin Matthews' game to McDavid. That McDavid is so much further ahead than everybody else in the NHL right now that there's no chance that they're. That McDavid is just so much better than, with the exception of maybe with Crosby, but part of that's legacy based, right? So let's
Here's the thing. All right, so we have to remember this. Like as an example, if we use Tavares as the example, if John Tavares is your first line center, right? He makes it easier for everybody else on the team. The next center, all the other matchups, he's matching up against the best guy all the time, everywhere. Connor McDavid is taking that every single time. Austin Matthews did not do that last year every single time. He did not.
Okay.
Austin Matthews did not go up against everybody's 1D. He didn't.
Well, that's because Babcock was pretty careful at shielding.
Well, but I'm saying, but if you were matching up the guys, McDavid went up against the absolute best every minute of every shift in the NHL, where Matthews didn't.
But if you waited to put your best defenseman out, the way Babcock plays it is at least how I see he plays it. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but he plays it so that he actually frustrates teams by not putting Matthews on the ice, and he will wait to the point where they have to play these players who are going to play against them because they're not even playing them. And
that was if you want an example of what happened last year. I mean, look at the playoffs. Cassidy put out Chara and McAvoy every time Matthews is on the ice, and Matthews only had 2 points in 7 games. Yeah, so that's going to end now with Tavares because if you put that out against Matthews, great, then Tavares will kick your butt.
Right, but that's what a John Tavares does, where Matthews isn't quite there yet.
Right. Now we're going to see Matthews' numbers. Technically, they should shoot up, right? They should be close.
Yeah, he's on
potentially, sure.
Yeah.
So at which point do we sit there and say that he's still not as nearly as valuable as McDavid? Because if he's scoring,
McDavid is doing it without. He's been able to do what he has done without. I mean, the Leafs had Kadri as their number 2 and Bozak as their number 3.
Personal success, to borrow from Lou Lamoriello. He's had great personal success.
Heck, he can only do so much. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken bleep.
Maybe not, but I mean, at some point, you have to sit there and you have to judge based on what team is better. Where is this? What team is being made?
Well, whose fault is that? It's not Connor McDavid. It's Peter Chiarelli.
I totally agree with that, but I'm just saying that there is some set of responsibility for superstars.
Yeah, and don't you think Connor McDavid is doing everything that he can do? I think he is.
I think he is, and that's what I'm saying. I think he is doing everything he can do. He's putting up incredible numbers, but it's still not exactly helping make his team better.
Because there's not enough there to help him out.
Around them. There just isn't. And that's where the support structure is really really important in this. Doing what he's doing.
Yeah, everybody thought Lucic would be better with McDavid.
Here's the thing. So in 2 years of playoffs right now, Austin Matthews had 7 points, right? McDavid was in the playoffs once. He had 9, and of those 9, he had a shorthanded goal and a game winner. Like, he's still better. You could look at almost anything.
Every first power play, every possible minute he can play. Where McDavid is
also producing.
He's producing. He's playing all this stuff, but McDavid is coming in. And you're talking about 2 less points.
Actually, he didn't have a game winner. He had a shorthanded, and that was the other big goal.
2 less points. Where Matthews is playing on the second power play units, and he's coming in off the bench all the time, and it just and Matthews showed. Man, Matthew was pissed off about it. We saw it at the end of the year. He talked about it.
Well, he might be more pissed off about it this year because he's.
And I think that's a realistic.
All right. So how do you explain this then, Eck? Matthews, in his 2 years for the playoffs, has taken 43 shots, and he has less points. McDavid has taken 37 shots in the playoffs and has more points.
Yeah, no, that's a great statistic for sure. And I'm not going to sit there and tell that that definitely plays. But I also give Matthews credit for taking that many shots. But I want to know ice time. Give me ice time between these two guys. Like, that to me is a big. Matthews is
still
trying.
Had 17 minutes of ice time last year. It was down for a couple minutes, but still 17 minutes in the playoffs is a lot.
What's McDavid's ice time?
McDavid's ice time.
He's in the 20s for sure.
Hold on.
So you're talking about more shots. Less power play.
You cannot make a side-by-side comparison of these guys because they're different type of players. B, they're in different types of scenarios.
No, they are, and they're very different players, and they're different scenarios, and it's hard. But you have to sit there and say, what are we going to pay this guy? This whole argument.
Like I said, I think one of the factors, Zach, here is there is not a Tavares in Edmonton. And Matthews is going to have to adjust his focus with a Tavares there making $11 million, and like I said, he took $2 million less to come to Toronto. So the expectation from the Leafs is you're all going to have to take a little less if you want to be part of this team winning the Stanley Cup. And I think that they will buy into that, but there's no guarantee.
There is no guarantee, and it is one thing to take $2 million less to come in and be the top center on a team. It's another thing to take $2 million less to be the second center on a team.
Well, in 2 or 3,
we saw that with Malkin actually getting more money than Crosby. Remember, because that's the same kind of situation there.
In 2 or 3 years, that might reverse.
What was that?
In 2 or 3 years, that's going to reverse. Right now, Tavares might be the number 1 center, but in 2 or 3 years, when Matthews is 23 or 24 and Tavares is 31, then Matthews will be the number 1.
So, do we think Matthews is going to be a bigger contract than Tavares is?
I think there's a potential that if the cap goes up next year, I think that it could be 11.5.
Okay, so you think
yeah.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I would say, again, it's obviously everything's performance based in this circumstance. Yeah. So again, if we have an absolute explosion from Matthews where he's popping in 40 plus the next couple of years, that's going to change the landscape on everything here. So I don't know if we can make any assumptions yet on what Matthews is going to make in his next deal in comparison with Tavares's. It's the same principle I had earlier. People were asking me about Stamkos versus Kucherov's deal. Yeah. Again, different situations, different scenarios, different cap situation there. So
that's a great point. And probably why, and absolutely 100% why, not probably 100% why Matthews' agent is not going to negotiate right now, because he knows what's going on, because he looks at these numbers and he knows that with Tavares there, he's going to get more points. He should get more points. He should get more freedom, at least, from checking centers.
And now he has the same agent as McDavid.
Yeah. And that's going to play into it. It's going to be.
At the end of the day, also, Mike, I would say the agent works for the player, and the player is going to tell him basically what.
Yeah.
Because they're both at the same age. I'll take a little bit more Maybe not. We don't know. If his production is Ovechkin, say not Ovechkin level, but say he's popping in, a 35, 40 goal season consistently.
Yeah,
that's going to go.
I agree, and you can sit there and talk about the value of the marketing and the amount of advertising Matthews can do up there, but I don't necessarily see him as a guy out there doing a lot of that. Like
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about him like wanting to establish like his own brand. Like he's like into like he wants to have his own clothing line and things of that nature. So I think Austin Matthews is going to take advantage of the market that is Toronto and his place as a star player on that team, and one of the things I think is a benefit for them is by Lou moving onto the Islanders. I think they're going to be more open-minded for these teams, for these players having their own individual brand and their own personality, and I think that Matthews will take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, those are different things, right? To market your own brand, your own clothing, whatever is one thing versus like Tim Hortons or whatever. Like it's a different thing. Like I don't know where more of the money is. Sometimes more of the money is actually in the Tim Hortons than your own brand, which is more of an investment for a player. So they can.
Oh, he's already doing it. He's already doing stuff for Scotiabank, so that's he's already making money that way.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Matt, maybe we'll see that. Maybe we'll see more of that. I don't know. It's just to me, it's something. And I know I knew I was going to lose this one, but I just because I know how everyone feels about this. And I know I'm going to get killed on the comments. I haven't even gone into them yet, so I'm going to go into them now on my thread. But I think that my point is I'm kind of overwhelmed by the fact that it's not even discussed, on a realistic level. To me, it feels as if it's just such an assumption. And I think people are a little bit snowed. This is my final argument. A little bit snowed by the fact that this snowed is not even fair, but McDavid is obviously incredible. Like you see him doing obvious incredible things, and it's hard to deny that. Where Matthews does a lot of other things incredibly well that you don't necessarily notice. In a way, it's maybe it should be more of like McDavid is Crosby, where Matthews is Malkin to a degree.
This is like discussing New York bagels against Montreal bagels. Right now, the discussion is not there. It's not.
All right, we'll see how it goes. Thanks so much, Anthony. Thanks everybody for jumping on and hanging out and watching us play. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.